and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And I'm Meg Hofdahl.
And today we're talking about My Bloody Valentine. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Are you spending it with someone you love?
I hope so. What do you do on Valentine's Day, Kelly?
Well, here's my story. Ever since I was little, my Valentine's Day has been my dad's birthday. It's his birthday. And so we would always celebrate his birthday on Valentine's Day. And when we would go out to eat for his birthday, it was always super crowded. And so we learned after many years that it was not a good day to go out to eat because all the restaurants up their prices and you can't get in anywhere. But so that's always been sort of my focus. I'm not a big, I expect this, and this on Valentine's Day kind of person. I just feel like it's another day.
Yeah, I think for me, I think after that first year or two you're in a relationship with somebody, it's kind of like, okay, well, that was fun to, but afterward, we both are like, let's not give each other gifts on Valentine's Day. That's kind of a bit much. And now it's been more about the kids. One of the things I really like about Valentine's Day is it's one of the few holidays that they celebrate at school still. And so it gets to be kind of like a fun day for your kids to look forward to. So they get to get the little, Valentines and get the candy they choose and all that stuff. And so I like that about it. It's like a fun, happy thing that everybody's involved with. And it's not like doesn't have to do with any religion or anything like that, as far as at least now. So I don't know. I kind of like it for that reason. And sometimes we get the heart pizza from Papa Murphy's. And that's the pinnacle of Valentine's Day in our house.
I always loved Valentine's Day, though, at school, like you mentioned, getting and giving the Valentines to classmates. That was the best.
That was really fun when you get to make a little mailbox maybe, or make your little box and then go around and put candy in the little, and that was fun to choose what kind of Valentines you're going to get. So yeah, I love it. But I do have a tragic Valentine's Day story.
Oh no, what is it?
Well, I was in first grade. And my mom dressed me up really cute for Valentine's Day, and I had on a dress and the whole thing. But unfortunately, I had cute little shoes on, little saddle shoes. And there was gym class, and I slipped, and I sprained my wrist, and I had to leave school before the Valentine's Day party. No. And it was the worst moment of my very clearly privileged life.
Oh, that's so sad. Now, I had the opposite experience on Valentine's Day in first grade because I went to school, and the day before we had voted on our classmates who would be king and queen of Valentine's Day, and I came in and I found out I was queen and I got to wear a crown all day.
That really makes my tragedy feel even worse right now.
I'm sorry.
Insult to injury much.
It was the highlight of my young life and the tragedy of yours. So tell us about this movie.
Okay, so My Bloody Valentine is a Canadian horror film that came out in 1981. It's starring basically almost an all-Canadian cast, except I think the main star is from England. It was not very much a success. It only made about a third of what Friday the 13th had made the year before. It was sort of done quickly to sort of, I guess, capitalize on the whole idea of the holiday slasher trend of Halloween. And I guess technically Friday the 13th is at least date-based. I don't know about holiday. So sort of done in that way where they wanted to have a Valentine's Day sort of horror movie, which I do think is kind of cool. And on paper sounds cool. But yeah, it didn't do great, and it didn't really get good reviews either. It was remade in 2009. I actually went and saw the remake. I don't know I hadn't seen this original before. This is the first time I watched it. So the remake was starring Jensen Ackles from Supernatural.
Oh, okay.
It, I guess, was when I think back on it, I barely remember it, but it was a 3D movie when that was kind of doing its thing again. And so sort of in the, which is the Friday the 13th sequel that has
the third.
It's third, of course. In that way, it has the dorky stuff in it. Even though it's not that old, it wasn't that long ago, they did a lot of the dorky, this is 3D, so the pickaxe is coming out of the screen, that kind of thing.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think that this concept is pretty much perfect for a Valentine's Day theme because he's ripping people's hearts out and then putting them into like a Valentine's chocolate box. How can you get more perfect than that?
No, I love it. And on paper, it's great. Like, I love this idea, this concept of Valentine's Day. I mean, you can't get much better than a heart in a heart-shaped box with like the blood dribbling on the outside. I mean, that's great.
The other great concept on paper is that there was this mining tragedy and this guy was trapped underground for, did they say 6 weeks?
Yeah, it was funny because they were like, well, then, they found the bodies of these guys and they had been stuck under there for 6 weeks and then they found a living guy. And I was like thinking to myself, well, how did he live under there for 6 weeks? And then they show you how he lived under there and he was eating people.
He became a cannibal and they literally showed him chomping on an arm when they found him. That was great.
I thought that was cool. And actually, when I was doing a little bit of research for this movie, they said that the MPAA actually took out 9 minutes of violence from this movie. And so there's quite a bit of gore that they took out. And apparently, when they released the DVD in 2009 to sort of get people excited for the remake, they put in 3 extra minutes that they had taken out. But there's 6 minutes of gore and violence that have never been seen from this movie. So I'd be interested to see like what it is. And, because once I'd read that and I was watching it, there were parts where I'm like, yeah, that probably was shown a little bit more. And he probably showed, like when the girl dies in the shower, they don't really show, or she dies before the shower and he puts her in the shower, they don't really show it. My other little favorite story is that apparently, this was filmed in Nova Scotia, and apparently the mines that they chose to film in, the people, when they said, yeah, we're going to film here, the people thinking they were doing something nice that owned it cleaned out completely the mines and they looked pristine. And the production ended up having to spend $30,000 to make it look dirty again.
Oh my gosh. What would they do that for?
I know. They're like, let's be helpful and like vacuum out the cobwebs and make it all nice in here. And they really like hurt the production. So I thought that was kind of funny.
That is totally funny. So I grew up in a mining community and this theme, maybe it wasn't necessarily prevalent in real life, but to me, I always felt like this theme that they explore in the movie is being forced to do the work of your parents and you have to go work in the mine because your parent did. That's explored a little bit in the TV show Sabrina. Harvey is having to work in the mine, but I think it's ripe for some good angst and like missed opportunities and love. And, I feel like it's a universal theme that everyone can relate to. Are you being forced to do something you don't want to do?
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think it makes sense in this story. But I wonder, why do you think it seems to be shown most in like a mining situation, like in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina and this? Like, what is do you feel like that is accurate to your mining community?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the thing about the mining jobs, at least now, they pay well. And so if you are lucky enough to get into one of those jobs, unless you really want to do something else or like, especially like maybe a creative field or something, I think it's a good opportunity if you don't mind the work.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, I think you're right that this idea of not wanting to disappoint our parents and like this whole, that the town is sort of predicated on it. And it's like the town will fail if everybody young leaves. And so, yeah, it's kind of an interesting, and I thought it was kind of cool that the movie took place in a mining community. And I thought it made it kind of like a little bit different.
Yeah, and it felt more realistic or something. So, and underground mine, what an incredible setting for a movie. So we have some underground mines, where I grew up, and one of the cool things, which you're going to read about in our upcoming book, is one of the underground mines. It's, I think, over a mile underground or something insane. They actually set up a lab to study neutrinos and dark matter because things in science, in physics, act differently that deeply underground than they do on the surface. And so I think that is also ripe for horror.
It's fascinating. And I'm also like I would be interested in the psychology of what it's like to be under there, to like work under there. Like, I wonder what that would be like to not have light and to sort of be that far underground and what that does to your brain.
So before they invented the carbide lights that they're using in this movie on their helmets, so it's like a flashlight that you can see with on your helmet, they would literally have candle stuck to their helmets with candle wax, and you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. It was hardly enough light, and then there would just be like fire burning about to help you work. But there was no natural source of light that deep underground, and so that must have been horrifying.
Like, can you imagine what that would do to your eyesight? Yeah. And just like, and yeah, I feel like that would be a great, like, people going crazy story. So let's talk about this first scene of this movie.
Oh boy.
Because, I mean, where else would a woman like to have sex but in an underground, dirty mine? I mean...
isn't that all our Valentine dreams?
Yeah. And I just love how, like, seductively she's stroking his mask. And I really don't see was that in the 60s or was that the 80s? I don't even know when that took place, like in the timeline of things, or...
I don't know either. I'm assuming that was in the 80s. Oh, yeah, because she's the first heart that gets delivered. And, yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. And, of course, she has the heart tattoo, and that's where she gets stabbed. And, she, I mean, that if you wanted to write a paper on, like, slut shaming, this would be a great scene.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I also love, moving away from that scene, Mabel has gone all out. She's like one of your fellow party planners. She has decorated every inch of this town with streamers and cutout hearts.
I want to be like Mabel when I grow up. Yeah, I love, first of all, this whole concept to go nuts on Valentine's Day. I haven't thought about it. Now I'm inspired. But I don't know, was Valentine's Day ever a big thing in like your town?
No, not town-wise, but the name of the town is Valentine's Bluff, so it's perfect.
I guess it makes sense. I think here in Minnesota it's just too cold still to really be excited about anything. But yeah, I think it's kind of funny. But here, okay, so the concept of this movie is that this guy who had to become a cannibal underground, he went crazy. And that part they actually did pretty effectively well. That was creepy. But basically this accident happened that caused that because the supervisors were like at the Valentine's Day party. And so really I feel like his request is quite fair and simple of let's not have any more Valentine's Day parties, but they just can't
Can't help themselves.
I know it's like that's really not that high of a like thing to go for. I mean, just don't have a Valentine's Day party,
Yeah, maybe have it the day before. I don't know.
Or maybe just really hunker down on Halloween. I know your name is Valentine Falls or whatever, but I mean, come on.
I like also the concept of the character, and he's in his full gear of underground miner, and so we just assume it's this guy because we don't see his face. And so I was really hoping like at the end it would turn out to be Mabel or somebody really unexpected. I mean, I guess the killer, spoiler alert, is Axel, and I guess it was still sort of unexpected, but I mean, I appreciate when you don't know who's under there.
Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job with that. I think that we didn't know exactly who it was, and I didn't remember from the remake, so that's probably says something about the remake. So they did make me feel like, oh yeah, it is this hairy guy because, and it made me think at the end it felt like Prom Night, another Canadian horror film to me, where it was like, no, it's this person, shit. So that was kind of fun, and there are things, again, like I said, on paper that I like. I like that it's this sort of like small mining community. I like Mabel.
She had a horrific death in the dryer.
She did. Poor Mabel. She was all like, yeah, that was bad. But just like the actual construction of this movie and the fact that it's just a bunch of like drunk dudes, fratty type boys, I don't know.
Yeah, it got old. And the love triangle, I mean, they were trying to set it up. So there was the main drama with this group of young people was centered on that, and it just wasn't compelling enough for me to care.
Yeah, it's like I know I'm supposed to care, but I'm looking at the cast from the remake. So Jamie King played Sarah, And then Kerr Smith, do we know him? Played Axel. Okay, I'm just clicking on him. But yeah, I mean the love triangle just didn't hold my interest. I mean, I feel like it had all the things that it should. Oh, he was in Final Destination. Okay. I feel like it had all the things, but it just didn't like come together or something. And I think like the teaser in the beginning with the woman getting killed in her underwear and stuff, like it was just like, oh, okay, it's going to be this. And it never really like got better than that.
There were some interesting kills. I'll give them that.
Yeah, and like we really love the hearts and the heart boxes. That's great. And the setting, I like the setting and the concept of like the minor costume. That's cool. So, and I mean, I kind of like when they opened the fridge and the guy was dead in the fridge and they didn't notice and stuff. So there was some like good stuff in there, but I think overall, and I know I harp on this every episode, but it's about the characters, and there just weren't like characters that you were like, oh my gosh, if they die, I'm gonna be upset.
And did you notice it was all straight white people?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I guess for a 1980s little small mining town, I suppose it was probably pretty accurate. But yeah, I mean, and then yeah, it's just like there were those sort of cliched characters. There was like the Hollis, the like funny guy, and oh, I know what I saw that was interesting. The guy that played Axel, the killer.
He's a animator for The Simpsons, right?
Yeah, I saw that. That was kind of cool. So, you know, stuff worked out for him. I mean, nobody else really in this movie, like, went on to great acclaim. You recognize somebody from the X-Files, right?
Yeah, the guy, was his Hollis? Was that his character? He was, a different guy. Well, whatever. He was in 3 episodes of the X-Files as various characters because he was Canadian and he was around to get cast multiple times.
I'm sure, like, pretty much every Canadian actor in the 90s was in the X-Files. There's not that many of them.
It's kind of like every New York actor's in Law and Order or one of those shows.
Yeah, they get their turn eventually. Okay, that guy that was in the X-Files, here's an ethical question. When Hollis dies from nails to the brain, the 2 girls can't seem to like get away from his dead body when like the bad guy is coming. And he's like, come on, we got to go. Like, he's dead. Let's go. And he ends up just leaving them and running away. Is that something to be judged as cowardly?
I don't know. I mean, at what point do you have to save yourself because you're going to end up dying if you stay? And I mean, we can put this into a bunch of different scenarios, but if you're going to die if you stay, I mean, he ended up dying anyway, but shouldn't you try to save yourself?
I feel like if we think about the scenario and I'm like hysterical because Luke just got killed and I'm over his dead body and some dude's like, come on, and I don't go, like, I mean, and I guess this is a man-woman thing where it's like he's supposed to protect them, but at what point, I mean, he's saying let's go. So I don't know, I just feel like it's supposed to seem like really cowardly, but I don't know. It's one of those things that maybe we'd have to be in this scenario. I don't know. I hope I never am.
So they had a line. I think you were out of the room when they had this line. We just watched this. They were going to bring the girls down to the mine in their little train cars, and one of the guys is like, you know the rule, no women in the mine. And I thought, well, that's funny, but also maybe for that mine, but not necessarily true because I think women were allowed to start working in the mines a decade earlier than this. So my grandma worked in a mine, and I think that obviously times are changing. But you know what? Speaking of grandma, the fashion in this movie, they looked like they were dressed like grandmas.
Yeah, and they just thought they were so hot for the Valentine's Day party.
Oh, and the guys, to be fair, they were dressed like grandpas. They were wearing like sweater vests.
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, the 80s. I don't know what anybody was thinking. Everybody looks frumpy and bad, and I don't know. Maybe we'll look back on this time with the same, but I don't think so.
Aren't we getting better in fashion? I hope.
I think so. I think we are.
There was the kill with we mentioned the guy already being found in the freezer, but his face was boiled in some hot dogs. It reminded me of that kill in Sleepaway Camp.
Oh yes, I love a good boiling. face. I like that.
And then his heart was ripped out and put into the hot dogs.
It was. I mean, I don't know how accurate that heart looked in there, but yeah, that was funny. So they were like eating hot dogs that was like that were in the same pot as his burned face and his heart. So I like that. I like cheeky things like that.
They're talking about this dance, and it's more of like a community dance, not like a high school dance. But our older kids are getting to the age where they're going to have their first dances. Do you know if you have a middle school dance here?
Yes, and it was the other day.
Wait, did your son go?
No, well, okay, first of all, this is weird. It starts literally the minute after school at 2:30. Yeah. A dance that starts at 2:30, so you can't go home and get yourself cute before you go. I know Fox doesn't care, but and then they do it at the school, and then they also can go swimming in the swimming pool at school and stuff. But he did not want to go. I tried to convince him that it would be fun, but then I was like telling him about how all the girls stand on one side and all the boys stand on the other.
Well, our Campbell's first dance is coming up in a couple weeks, and their dance goes from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And I think that's perfect.
That makes sense because they can go home and have dinner. Remember? You must have gone to some of those, and it was fun. You would get with your girlfriends and you would like get all cute before you go and stuff.
I mean, it's the biggest deal. I loved school dances.
Yeah, I did too. I mean, they were always fun, and I was usually I would go over and ask boys to dance. I was pretty bold. How about you?
I don't think I was that bold. Not in like 7th grade. As I got older, I cared less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't think in 6th grade. I remember we didn't really. I remember it was like, I do remember now, 6th grade fall dance. But it was like also like a carnival, and the dance part like nobody was doing. Everybody was doing the carnival because everybody's still a little nervous about that, you know?
Well, yeah, it's a big deal. The part of this, I guess it was a true story of this guy, becoming a cannibal in the mine like you do. But it reminded me of like urban legends and things that maybe towns or communities are squeamish about and sort of shy away from. Did you ever live in a place, or can you think of in your reading or research now of something like this where it's like this legend and people don't speak its name or something?
That's a good question. When I lived in Bay Village, Ohio briefly, which is this very small little town on Lake Erie, and it was where that man killed his family. The Fugitive movie is based off of it, and he said the one-armed man did it, and like my little elementary school was where they like did like a lot of the actual court stuff because they like didn't have a decent court or whatever, and apparently that was something you weren't supposed to like talk about. It was like, oh, our horrible past or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's more like true crime things of like, when we went to Amityville, and was it Amityville where it's like people don't really talk about it, and it's not like they are promoting it and like, come on down to, where this happened. Although Sleepy Hollow did promote the whole Headless Horseman thing. So,
but I guess it's true crime versus legend or, fiction.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a lot easier to embrace fiction than like people who are actually murdered. So, yeah, but I like the idea of small towns having these obviously deep-seated underbellies and things like that, and legends. Are there any from you? You mean you grew up in a small area?
Not that I can think of. And so that's why it makes me curious to do a little more exploring and what are the things that towns are hiding about their dark pasts.
It would be fun to research. Like I was I did research for a book I wrote, and then I saw it on Ken Burns did a documentary on the Mayo Clinic here, and part of it is about Rochester itself, and they were talking about this tornado that happened here, and like just how it decimated Rochester at the time in the 1880s, and it's fascinating to learn about history of like where you literally are living. It's cool,
Yeah. So visit your local historical society or museum. That's my plug for today.
Go to the library, you degenerates.
We need to rank this movie on a scale of 0 to 10. I mean, I think I know what our scale is. It has to be the hearts in the chocolate box, right?
Yes. By the way, I loved his reaction when he got the heart. He opens the thing. There's a human heart inside of the Valentine's box. And I don't know. How do you feel like you would react to that?
I would throw it away from me as quickly as I could.
He's just like, oh no, it's happening again. Like he was almost kind of like sad.
Yeah. And he either like rolled his eyes and put his head back or he just like hung his head.
Yeah.
It was not a big reaction.
While he's still holding this heart.
Okay, so 0 being you hated it, 10 being it's a perfect movie. How many human hearts in a Valentine's Day chocolate box do you give My Bloody Valentine?
Well, there weren't really any good characters, and some of it was a little sloppy. I'll give it a 5 because I liked some of the kills in it, and I liked when they were showing the guy like chewing on the arm.
That's a sentence you just said. I'm going to give it 4 bloody human hearts in Valentine's chocolate box. Yeah, it like we said, on paper, it has all of these elements that should have made it over the top amazing. And so I'm curious to watch the remake because, I mean, I feel like, oh, maybe if they redid this, it would be amazing. But what would you give that one?
I don't know. Maybe it's on Prime. Maybe we should watch it and like see what it's like. I'd be curious to compare it because it didn't stick in my mind, let's put it that way. So it must have not been very good. I don't know. Maybe we'll come back and say maybe we'll watch it. Depends how desperate we are.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have it in me. But, we hope that you're having a happy Valentine's Day and spending it with ones you love or whatever. Remember, you don't have to have a Valentine to be happy. You can be happy and single and loving life.
You just need your heart in your body. Yeah. And I'm just thinking, think of all the cheesy lines that they could have used in this movie that they didn't. I don't know if that's a missed opportunity or it's good.
I know. But would that have made it better, or would we have hated it more?
I know. I'm just wondering, just conversation heart type little axioms that those could have been fun. Spin those. I don't know. Maybe we should make our own remake.
Maybe. And I guess part of it too, the killer couldn't speak because we couldn't get a hint of who he was, and so we couldn't hear his voice ahead of time. That's why I was really hoping for a twist where it was like Mabel or a woman or somebody, because that would have been more shocking.
It would have been cool if it was I guess so it ended up being him because he saw his dad be killed by him, and I guess that was all they really needed to be and now he does this. Now he's crazy. But it would have been fun if it was somebody whose heart was quote unquote broken or something like that, who it had more of a love angle or something. That could have been more fun.
I just heard on NPR Science Friday it was a while ago now, about people actually dying of broken hearts, and your heart changes. And this is a heart surgeon who wrote this book and was interviewed. Your heart changes when you're feeling deep grief, and it can be loss of a loved one or just a breakup, and people are actually proven to have died from broken hearts.
That's crazy. And when you think about we've all seen couples where one dies and then the other one dies a day or a week or a month later. I mean, and it's I guess they just couldn't go on, and how, and then it makes you realize how much your physical and mental being is connected, and then that kind of freaks me out.
Yes, and so I always teach my students I can cite the studies that people who have at least some close relationships in their lives, it doesn't have to be a ton, but at least somebody, you're going to be emotionally, mentally, and physically happier and healthier than people who don't have anybody. And that sort of, proves it. You could die of a broken heart.
And it's sad to think about people who are older and they've lost their spouse and their friends have passed away. They get to the 80s and 90s and everyone they know is passing away. And they're also, unfortunately, in this culture, we don't really respect elders as much in other cultures, and you know, their grandkids and things, they don't come visit them and stuff. So I think maybe what we need to take out of My Bloody Valentine is go visit your grandma after you go to the library.
Maybe take your grandma to the library.
Oh, twofer.
It'll be fine. Okay, so let's not end on that note. I mean, that's a happy note, but let's not end with broken hearts. Let's end with, tell me if you could, let's say you're not married, and you could have one Valentine's, yeah, okay. If you could have one perfect Valentine's Day date tonight, who would you want it to be with? This can be a fictional or real person. And what would you want to do?
I would want to have a date with Jughead Jones from Riverdale. Obviously.
How did I know?
And I would want him to take me to the library.
Oh my God.
If you know what I mean.
There'll be some broken things, but not hearts.
I put out.
I love that. So do you want to know my answer? I mean, at this moment, I'm feeling Jughead Jones too, but since you're already going to be on the date.
Okay, I'll have him from like 8 to 9. You can have him then after.
No, I'm going to pick somebody else. Okay. You know who I'm taking on my Valentine's Day date? I'm taking the fictional character of Matt Murdock, who's Daredevil.
Oh, well, you guys should go and do like pottery from Ghost or something, like, because he can't see.
That'd be so hot.
Wow, this Valentine's Day just got hot.
It's turning out pretty well for both of us. No, but we'll be in New York City, and we're going to go for dinner, and like we'll feed each other and stuff. Like romantic couples do.
We both were like, we don't do Valentine's Day, we're married.
Yeah. So we have to pretend like if we were single, who would we want to go with? And we would just walk around the city, and I won't say see the sights, but it would be amazing. And we'd end back in his loft, and yeah.
So everybody, you guys should tweet us or send us messages of your fanfic of who you are going to go on your fake Valentine's Day with. We want to hear about it.
Or write us a fanfic of our... Yeah. We'll have a contest.
Yes. Yeah. Send mine. And then do Kelly's.
It'll be great. So happy Valentine's Day, everybody. We'll see you in the horror section.
Bye.